In tonight's Fact or Fiction, we are looking into yet another claim that The Simpsons predicted the future, in this case, the Astroworld Music Festival tragedy. Now, the image being used most commonly to back up the claim is this one, which appears to show various Springfield residents next to a monument of musician Travis Scott.
The Simpsons have done it again. This time, their predictions for 2025 are beyond anything we've ever seen. From unexpected world leaders to eerie advances in artificial intelligence, their wild ideas feel like they might actually come true. The clues are all there, and they're more chilling than ever. Could a cartoon really hold the answers to events we haven't even lived through yet? Tune in as we uncover the true power of these predictions that are making the US government very uncomfortable. The Simpsons predicted the world falling apart. The global economy is already on shaky ground, and experts are sounding the alarm about possible financial disasters ahead. The Simpsons seem to have seen this coming all the way back in 2000. In an episode titled Bart to the Future, they hinted at an economic collapse during a Trump presidency. While Trump isn't currently in office, the idea of another financial downturn isn't far-fetched. Remember when the United States printed trillions of dollars in 2020? Add that to rising inflation and global debt, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Could The Simpsons have been warning us all along? It's hard not to wonder when the timing lines up so eerily well. Before we delve into this, it's clear that The Simpsons' predictions for 2025 point to a reality far stranger than we ever thought possible. And this won't be the only revelation to leave you stunned. Speaking of eerie, how about the Shard in London? This iconic skyscraper was completed in 2009, but sharp-eyed Simpsons fans noticed something odd years before that. In a 1995 episode, a scene shows London's famous Tower Bridge with a suspiciously familiar-looking skyscraper in the background. Fast forward 14 years, and the Shard is standing tall in real life. Was this just a lucky guess? Or did The Simpsons know something the rest of us didn't? It's little things like this that make you question how a cartoon could nail such specific details. Let's not forget the rise of artificial intelligence. Experts have been warning about AI taking over jobs for years. And guess what? The Simpsons were way ahead of them. In a 2012 episode called The Informant, Homer loses his job at the nuclear plant to robots. Mr. Burns even delivers a chilling line. Humans will train these robots, and they will replace you. Sound familiar? Today, we're training AI tools to code, write, and even create art. And it's not just jobs on the line. Another episode from 1994 featured robots at a theme park becoming self-aware and wreaking havoc. Is it still just fiction? Or are we edging closer to living out these animated warnings? The pandemic taught us just how unpredictable the world can be, but apparently, The Simpsons had a clue long before we did. In a 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, a flu virus spreads to Springfield after contaminated juice shipments arrive from Japan. Sound familiar? The parallels to the COVID-19 pandemic are uncanny, but it doesn't stop there. The same episode also features crates of criminal bees being accidentally released during a chaotic scene. Could this be a nod to the hornets that made headlines in 2020? If we're looking at 2025 predictions, should we brace ourselves for another wave of unexpected chaos? And then there's the most unsettling prediction of all, global war. The current state of the world is tense, to say the least. Conflicts in Ukraine, the Middle East, and other regions have people on edge. Incredibly, The Simpsons touched on this decades ago. In a 1987 episode, Homer panics and yells, "Wake up everybody, it's World War III." What seemed like an exaggerated joke back then feels unnervingly relevant today. Former intelligence officials are even suggesting that we could already be in the early stages of a global conflict. Are The Simpsons trying to prepare us for what's to come? Black holes. What a thought, right? Scientists have been exploring their nature for decades, and yet there's so much we still don't get. Sure, we've seen them in theories, movies, and shows, but imagine if one popped up on Earth. The Simpsons, in their endless guessing game of the future, aired an episode where a black hole appears. The more people fed it random junk, the bigger it got until it swallowed everything. And get this. The things and people it consumed didn't vanish, but ended up on another planet where aliens greeted them like they were expected. It's wild, but isn't it a bit unnerving to think about? Scientists recently discovered a black hole near Earth. But how close is too close? If something like this were to happen in the next few years, how would humanity even deal with it? As the line between cartoons and reality becomes less clear, more predictions appear, pointing to a future full of surprising changes. When sci-fi becomes everyday life, then we have holograms. Remember when Bart Simpson got a hologram invite for his band? Back then it felt like a silly plotline, but look at where we are now. Holograms are becoming a thing, and they're not just for fancy concerts anymore. The idea of replacing phones with 3D projections might not be far off. Imagine waving goodbye to texting, and instead seeing a mini version of your friend in the air. It's cool, but also kind of eerie. Could holograms become the norm by 2025? The pace of tech these days makes it feel like nothing is off the table. Yet, with all this rapid progress, what do we risk losing? Hold that thought, because the future's possibilities are about to get even more out there. Hovercars. They sound like something from a sci-fi movie, but it's not just a dream anymore. In one Simpsons episode, Bart and Lisa zipped around in hovercars like it was the most normal thing ever. No traffic jams, no potholes, just smooth floating through the air. Innovators like Elon Musk are already tinkering with ideas for futuristic transport, so why not hovercars? By 2025, we could be seeing prototypes flying around. It's exciting, sure, but also raises questions. What about safety, costs, or even who gets to own one first? As thrilling as the thought is, it's worth wondering if the world is ready for such a leap. And just when you think the future's all bright and shiny, a darker prediction creeps in. A nuclear apocalypse. Now that's the kind of Simpsons prediction that sends shivers down your spine. They've joked about confidential societies plotting nuclear disasters and even shown the chilling aftermath of one. Picture it. A world in ruins with Homer Simpson somehow surviving as the last man standing. It's funny on screen, but in real life, this hits a little too close to home. Political tensions and unrest around the globe make the fear of nuclear war feel more real than ever. Could this be another of the Simpsons' eerie predictions coming true? Let's hope not, because the aftermath would be beyond devastating. But even as we cross our fingers, it's hard not to wonder, are we really as safe as we think we are? Shifting gears, let's talk about space. The Simpsons once showed Homer and his family visiting a facility where people were training to live on Mars. It seemed far-fetched back then, but now, NASA and private companies are already running simulations for life on other planets. Could we see humans settling on Mars in the next decade? With all the advancements in space exploration, it feels like a real possibility. Living on another planet sounds cool, but what happens when things go wrong? These training programs might prepare astronauts for Mars's harsh conditions, but no one can predict every challenge. Still, the idea of leaving Earth behind for a new frontier, it's equal parts thrilling and terrifying. But as always, the Simpsons have more bizarre scenarios to throw our way. Remember that Simpsons movie where Springfield gets trapped in a giant dome? It's one of those ideas that's both ridiculous and oddly plausible. Imagine a government deciding to trap a city under a dome to control resources or reduce consumption. Sounds extreme, but with rising living costs and environmental concerns, could leaders take such drastic steps? Cutting off electricity or internet to force people to consume less. It's a dystopian thought, but not entirely out of the question. The idea of a restricted life under a dome makes you wonder, how far are we from something like this becoming reality? Whether it's probable or not, it's a chilling reminder of how fragile our freedoms can be. And next, the end of the world. One of the Simpsons' more dramatic predictions comes from an episode where Homer foresees the apocalypse. He quotes the Bible, expecting stars to fall and the rapture to begin. But when nothing happens, he's left feeling foolish, only to find himself in heaven later. It's a comedic take on a serious topic, but it leaves you thinking, could the world end without warning? Natural disasters, wars, or even something we haven't imagined yet. The possibilities are endless. The unpredictability of life is both exciting and terrifying. As the Simpsons keep throwing these wild predictions our way, one can't help but wonder, which one might actually come true? From funny moments to strange predictions, the next part shows how technology could soon change the way we live, when machines replace humanity. Virtual dining might sound like something straight out of science fiction, but let's not kid ourselves. It's closer to reality than you'd think. Picture this: sitting at home with a headset strapped on, feeling like you're at a fancy restaurant while actually eating microwave noodles through a feeding tube. Yeah, The Simpsons took that concept and ran with it in one of their episodes. Sure, it's funny on TV, but in real life, not so much. If people start trading family dinners for VR meals, we're looking at a whole new level of isolation. Less face-to-face time, weaker relationships, and a possible hit to our mental health. Are we really ready to trade real connections for digital illusions? Let's just hope we don't reach a point where we forget what real conversations over a meal even feel like. Speaking of stepping into the future, how about robot librarians? The Simpsons once gave us a peek at this with Lisa's wedding episode, where a robot guided her through a futuristic library. Fast forward a bit, and here we are. Universities building robot prototypes that can fetch books and offer recommendations. It's cool, sure, but think about it. Are we losing the charm of that human connection? A librarian isn't just a person who organizes books. They're someone who makes your reading experience personal, like a guide through the vast ocean of knowledge. As robotics become more advanced, are we risking losing touch with the warmth that only a human can offer? The Simpsons might have been ahead of their time, but is this a future we truly want to embrace? Now let's talk about something a little more dramatic. FIFA scandals. Remember when Homer got a gig as a World Cup referee in an episode of The Simpsons? It was hilarious, but also shockingly accurate. Not only did they predict Germany winning the World Cup, but they also tackled something much darker: corruption in FIFA. A few months after the episode aired, real-life FIFA scandals hit the headlines, with police raids and fraud cases shaking the soccer world. It's one thing to laugh at the absurdity on a TV show, but seeing it play out in reality? That's next-level eerie. Did The Simpsons just have their finger on the pulse? Or is there something uncanny about their knack for nailing future events? And who could forget that charming Beatles moment from The Simpsons? Marge's artistic flair brought Ringo Starr's mountain of fan mail to life, and years later, Paul McCartney gave us a similar real-life moment. In 2013, Paul responded to a letter sent 50 years earlier, found at a random car boot sale no less. Sure, it wasn't as dramatic as Ringo's pile of letters, but it had that same heartfelt touch. Moments like these remind us of how art can mirror life, even in ways we don't expect. But does it make you wonder just how many of The Simpsons' wild ideas are destined to jump off the screen? Let's not forget self-driving cars, another prediction that's inching closer to our daily lives. The Simpsons once showed a self-driving car refusing to stop for a bathroom break. And honestly, that's not too far-fetched when you consider the glitches we've already seen in today's tech. Imagine being stuck in a car that won't listen. Terrifying, right? While autonomous vehicles promise to revolutionize transportation, there's still a lot to figure out before we can fully trust them. Are we ready to hand over the wheel? Or are we racing toward a future where the tech might let us down when we need it most? It's a lot to think about as we hurtle toward this futuristic reality. And here's a wild card for you: baby translators. That's right. The Simpsons dreamt up a device that could turn baby babbles into clear words. At first, it sounds like a silly gag, but now, tech companies are making it happen with AI and data analytics. Imagine knowing exactly what your baby needs. No more guesswork, no more frustration. It's a parenting game changer for sure, but it also raises a question. Are we becoming too dependent on gadgets to do the things humans have been doing for centuries? If we let technology handle even the most basic parts of life, what happens to the skills we've relied on for generations? The possibilities are fascinating, but the trade-offs might be bigger than we think. With each new invention, we move closer to ideas that once seemed impossible but are now becoming a part of our world. A dark glimpse at the tech-driven world. Earlier this year, Apple dropped their much-hyped Vision Pro VR headset, and people were already buzzing about what the next version could bring next year. Imagine sitting at home and being transported to a live concert, or taking a safari without stepping outside. It's a wild leap in tech. But what's even wilder? The Simpsons seemed to call it years ago. In their 2016 episode, Friends and Family, Mr. Burns uses a futuristic headset to create a virtual family experience. The hilarity quickly spirals as Springfield's streets fill with VR chaos, people tripping over curbs, stumbling into traffic, and basically turning the town into a circus. Sound familiar? This isn't the first time The Simpsons' crystal ball seemed eerily accurate. In The World of Tomorrow, Lisa and Marge explore a futuristic theme park, complete with flying people and robots ruling over humans. If that doesn't feel close to home, consider Lisa's solar-powered car in The Paths of Glory. It was an inspired idea, but a huge Duff beer banner ruined her moment by blocking the sun and stopping the car in its tracks. Fast forward to today, and solar-powered cars are no longer just a crazy idea. A handful of models already exist, and who knows? By 2025, solar cars might be cruising down our streets like it's no big deal. The question is, which of these predictions makes you pause the most? But let's turn the clock back to the year 2000. Tragedy struck in the Barents Sea when the Russian nuclear submarine K-141 Kursk suffered a devastating accident. All 118 crew members lost their lives due to a malfunctioning torpedo. Reports tell of a first explosion, followed by a larger one. And while nearby ships felt the blasts, the Russian Navy didn't even realize a disaster had happened. It took 6 hours before any action began, and by the time rescue efforts started, the submarine lay 354 feet below the surface. To make things worse, the crew couldn't even attempt an escape because their rescue buoys had been intentionally disabled during a prior mission. Days passed before British and Norwegian divers managed to access the sub, but by then, it was too late. How many lives could have been saved if swift action had been taken? Speaking of uncovering the unimaginable, did you know The Simpsons hinted at the NSA's darkest things being leaked? In one episode, a character casually runs off with classified info. Fast forward to June 2013, and Edward Snowden, a former NSA contractor, did just that. He revealed how the NSA's global surveillance program monitored everything from emails to phone calls. Snowden claimed he tried to raise concerns internally, but no one listened, so he went public. Now he's in Russia, where he was granted citizenship in 2022. Did The Simpsons inspire Snowden's actions, or was it pure coincidence? Either way, their knack for tech predictions doesn't stop there. Remember when The Simpsons predicted Donald Trump's presidency? Back in the year 2000, they aired an episode where Lisa became president and mentioned inheriting a financial mess from President Trump. At the time, it seemed laughable. Trump was just a flashy businessman and reality TV star. But fast forward 16 years, and he became the 45th president of the United States. The show's writers claimed it was just a joke, inspired by his over-the-top personality. But can we really buy that? When so many other predictions from the show have come true, it's hard not to wonder if they know something we don't. And speaking of tech, let's talk video calls and smartwatches. Sure, the Jetsons might have shown off futuristic gadgets first, but The Simpsons made their predictions feel more real. In their almost 2,000 episode Lisa's Wedding, Lisa video calls her fiancé from a booth. Years later, in 2008, another episode featured a character wearing a watch with video calling capabilities, long before Apple released the Apple Watch. Today, these are everyday tools we barely think about, but it's uncanny how accurately they were imagined. Could tech companies have taken notes from our favorite yellow family? Are The Simpsons' predictions for 2025 just clever writing? Or could they be revealing something much deeper about the future we're headed for? Could this cartoon really be a warning we've been ignoring all along? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and share your thoughts on what these predictions mean. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.